The restaurant looked expensive. It was one of those places where the waiters wore white gloves and spoke with a French accent. Somewhere in the room, a piano played. Harry Jones pulled nervously at his shirt collar. It seemed to be getting tighter. He tapped his fingers on the desk as the restaurant manager peered at the computer. "You said you had a reservation?" asked the manager. He squinted at Harry, looking him up and down. Harry was glad he had worn a suit. He felt like he was being judged the moment he walked through the door. Harry gulped. "Yes, Harry Jones. It's a table for two at 8 o'clock. The manager looked back at the computer. "Ah, yes, here it is. If you would like to follow me." Harry glanced at his date and smiled. "I thought I might have to take you for a burger or something." He laughed at his own feeble joke. His date smiled politely, but said nothing. The restaurant manager led them through the restaurant, past candlelit tables where couples clinked glasses and whispered in each other's ears, only stopping to look up at Harry as he passed. Or at least that's how Harry felt. They reached a small table, right at the back of the restaurant, squeezed in between a large plant and the men's toilets. The restaurant manager gestured to the table and then quickly turned away. Harry pulled out the chair for his date.
"Thank you,"
she muttered under her breath, avoiding eye contact with Harry. He sat down opposite. They looked at each other, smiling shyly, but saying nothing. The tension was unbearable. Harry opened his mouth to say something. His date looked at him expectantly, but nothing came out. Silence. Awkward silence. Eventually, Harry cleared his throat with a loud ahem. "So," Harry said, his voice breaking, "you look, beautiful, Sarah." A toilet flushed from the men's room, ruining the moment slightly. Sarah blushed.
"Thank you. I like your suit."
She flicked her hair coyly. Harry nodded, happy that the uncomfortable silence was broken. But what would they say next? He racked his brain, trying to think of something funny. He remembered that making people laugh was important when making a good impression. He had spent all day reading articles on the internet about how to have a successful first date, how to smile without looking creepy, how to make your date feel relaxed, how to be the perfect gentleman. But he couldn't remember anything. The awkwardness descended on the table once again. A young man approached the table, holding 2 menus. It was a welcome distraction. "Thank goodness," said Harry, a little too eagerly. The waiter looked at him, confused. "My name is Philippe. I'll be your waiter tonight. Here are your menus. Can I get you a drink to start?" Harry wanted to impress Sarah. Make it seem as though he knew what he was doing, as though he belonged in these sorts of establishments. "Will we get a bottle of wine?" Sarah was focused on the menu. She wasn't a huge wine drinker. She could barely tell the difference between good wine and bad. The only thing she knew was it could be red or white. Sarah shrugged.
"I'll let you choose."
Harry suddenly felt warm. Sweat started to bead on his forehead. This was it, the first big test, red or white. Red wine seemed more romantic to him, but there was champagne, but that was expensive. Harry glanced at the wine list. There were so many foreign words. He furrowed his brow, pretending to know what he was doing. Why was this so difficult? All he wanted was a bottle of wine. Why were there so many? He could feel Sarah and Philippe staring at him. "Why don't you choose something for us? Something fruity?" Philippe looked at him for a moment too long, then nodded and walked away. Harry let out a sigh. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders.
"The menu looks fancy."
"See anything you like?" asked Harry.
"I'm more of a pizza girl myself, but the pasta looks nice."
Harry wanted a nice, juicy steak, but it was so expensive. $50 for a piece of meat? He couldn't afford that. He scanned the menu for the cheapest item. I think I might get the salad, said Harry. Philippe arrived with the bottle of wine. He opened it with a pop and poured some into Harry's glass. Thanks, said Harry. Philippe just stared at him. Harry looked back, wondering why he was still standing there. Sir? Yes, replied Harry. The wine. I know, thanks, smiled Harry. Sarah coughed.
He wants you to try it.
Harry cringed. He couldn't believe that he'd forgotten that. He casually lifted the glass, swirled the wine, smelled it, and then took a sip. He smacked his lips as he drank. He had no idea what good wine was supposed to taste like. He looked at Philippe and nodded. Excellent choice. Thank you. Philippe bowed. Do you need a few more minutes to look over the menu? I think we're ready to order, right? Sarah nodded. Harry gestured to Sarah to go first. He was a gentleman, after all.
I'll have the pasta, please,
whispered Sarah. And I'll have the salad, please, said Harry, trying to sound confident. Philippe jotted the order down, smiled, and left them. The night was growing darker. Maybe it was the wine, the romantic setting, or the large steak he had just eaten. But Harry felt good. They were having a good time. The conversation was flowing. Harry hadn't embarrassed him, yet. He had the list of topics to talk about, and a list to avoid.
So, you like salad?
Asked Sarah. Harry smiled. I'm, trying to get fit.
I like that. I thought you might have ordered a steak or something.
Harry was drooling at the idea of a medium-rare steak. Not all guys are crazed meat eaters.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm vegetarian. I hate animal cruelty. The idea of someone eating meat in front of me.
Sarah shuddered. Sarah took a sip of her wine. She looked up at Harry.
This has been nice,
smiled Sarah, flicking her hair from her face. It has.
We should do it again sometime,
she said, biting her lip. Really? Harry said, a little too quickly. I mean, that would be nice.
I forgot to ask, what do you do for a living?
Asked Sarah. Harry suddenly felt warm. He was sweating. He lowered his head. I'm a butcher. Sarah went quiet for a moment. Eventually, she looked at Harry.
I'm just gonna go now.
She grabbed her bag and got up from the table. Harry nodded and watched her go. He sipped his wine as Philippe approached the table. The check, sir. Philippe placed a small leather folder on the table. Harry lifted it slowly. He opened the folder and looked at the small piece of paper. He gulped and drank more of his wine.